What's going on, everyone? Casey Pippin with the Rogue Way here, and today we're going to talk about the Crucible. What is the Crucible? This is dealing with military training. This is dealing with the Marine Corps boot camp specifically. I made a couple videos about this so far, so it's kind of like a series that we're talking about. Let me just adjust my camera here just a little bit. Okay. I have been talking about military training, so this is kind of in like not really a series, but maybe it is a series. Some of the information is going to overlap. I'm not scripting this. I'm just really talking just off cuff. All right, so bear with me on that. But the Crucible is the final exercise of Marine Corps recruit training. It's something that I did. It was fairly new when I went through, and I went through a long time ago. Back in 1998 I enlisted in 98. I went to medical rehabilitation for a couple of months. I've got my infantry training battalion picture up there with a date on it. So I may have actually graduated. I graduated Marine Corps boot camp in 1999. So I went to the Crucible in 1999. So it was a long time ago. It was over 20 years ago. And, you know, while things in the civilian world change at cyclic rate in 20 years, Marine Corps fundamental recruit training doesn't change that much as I am learning. So much of what I experienced in 1999 is still relevant today. So what I want to do today is I want to just kind of explain what Marine Corps boot camp is, maybe talks about some differences than Army basic training, which, you know, I also went to around the same time period. I went to Army basic training first, and then I went into the Marine Corps later, so I went through both. As I always give a full disclaimer, because I know how important it is to soldiers out there, especially infantry soldiers. Full disclaimer, I did not go to Fort Benning, and as I understand it, Fort Benning is the more challenging of Army's basic training programs because it is where the infantry trains. So I said it, and also I did this a long time ago. So some of the information may have changed, although I think most of the fundamentals of what we do is still the same. All right, we evolve, our military forces evolve, the training evolves, but there are certain fundamental things that you have to do in training to take someone from a civilian to a soldier, or from civilian to a Marine. And those things tend to stay constant. So enough of that. So Marine Corps recruit training. When I stepped onto the bus and headed, well, first let me back up, and I've said this before. I was a direct shipper. I spent no time in what is known as delayed entry program. So I wasn't a pulley, and I didn't experience. And what that is a period of time before recruits will ship, you know, when they're home, and they'll go to meetings, just preparation meetings, you know, in order to kind of prepare them for what they're going to experience at recruit training. Don't ask me what goes on there, because I didn't go, and I wasn't a Marine Corps recruiter, so I really honestly couldn't tell you what went on there. I didn't do it. My preparation for Marine Corps boot camp was essentially Army basic training, you know, and it did an okay job of preparing me, although they're really a completely different thing. You know, they're not comparable in a traditional sense. I thought they would be. I expected to go to Marine Corps boot camp and it'd be just a carbon copy, longer version of Army basic training, but it's as different as it can be. A completely different focus, a different mindset, and I'll explain that. I'll try to explain that in this video, but I'll definitely do a Marine Corps recruit training versus Army basic training video separately, so you can pick and choose whichever one you like the best. So coming from that Army training experience, getting in my recruiter's car the day before I shipped, going to MEPS, doing everything I had to do. I believe I'd already, my physical was, everything was done except for swearing in and shipping. I may have had to redo my physical. I can't remember, but I know I enlisted and shipped the next day. So I got to MEPS and went to recruit training the next day. There was no in between, or there's no delayed entry. So from MEPS I flew because of where I live. We all go to most everyone goes to San Diego. All right, so Marine Corps recruit training has two depots or two training sites. One of them is San Diego, and one of them is at Parris Island, South Carolina. The most famous one is at Parris Island, South Carolina. If you watch the movie Full Metal Jacket, and probably nearly every other movie about the Marine Corps, I'm sure Parris Island was where they went to boot camp. It's just kind of the more modern, or more known, I guess you could say popular, maybe popularized version of boot camp. And it's funny because sometimes movies will take scenes that are supposed to be at Camp Lejeune, the East Coast, kind of the dark core, and they'll actually be filmed in Hollywood Marine Land, which is San Diego and California. Marines will call us who have trained in San Diego Hollywood Marines, even though I served at Camp Lejeune in North Carolina. I went to boot camp in San Diego, and that's where I, so I'm known as a Hollywood Marine. So you have two depots. You can go to either one. They're essentially the same thing. It's just different locations. I went to San Diego. San Diego's depot or recruit training center is right, unless it's moved, it's right beside the San Diego airport, which makes things even more miserable than they are, because every day of misery at Marine Corps Depot, San Diego, Recruit Depot, San Diego, you are watching these planes take off. All right, just one after another. You see every one of them just take off. And all you can think of is, man, if I can just jump this fence, I'm on the tarmac. Maybe somehow I can get to the airport without getting arrested or killed and get a flight out of here. It crosses your mind. You think about it all the time because it's just right in your face. And as I remember, the drill instructors made sure it was in your mind because they often would bring it up. So, Marine Corps recruit training starts at reception, receiving as it's called. Reception is, I believe, the Army's term, kind of. Like, some of my lingo will get mixed up a little bit because it's all been about the same time difference. I went to Army basic training about 3 years before I went to Marine Corps recruit training. I went to Army basic training. I was enlisted into the Army National Guard, and then from the Army National Guard, I was released to join the Marine Corps. So that explains that. And because it's both about 20 years ago, a little bit more, some of the language gets, mixed up in my head as far as recruit training. Because quite honestly, I haven't used Marine lingo since 2006 much, and I definitely haven't used it to the extent of boot camp. So anyway, as I was saying, you get to receiving, and that is where you pull up on the bus, and the drill instructors, usher you out and put you on the infamous yellow footprints. The yellow footprints are the first step on your path to becoming a United States Marine. It's also important, although I've noted it before, that another major difference between Army basic training and Marine Corps recruit training, at least in my day, was that when you arrived at reception in Army basic training, the drill sergeants almost immediately refer to you as private or soldier, okay? Which, it's not so much a title aspect in the Army, it's a skill-based program, if that makes any sense. So your title wasn't that you were earning the title, although you are a member of the Army and a soldier, but you were referred to that on day one. In Marine Corps recruit training, as in a Navy recruit training, actually, that's not the case. You don't become a sailor and you don't become a Marine on day one. It takes completing the training to earn those. So when you arrive at receiving, you step on the yellow footprints and you meet the first face that you have probably your generation has seen in YouTube videos. In my time, it was only in movies and books and recruiting information pamphlets and what have you. And I had already been through, like I said, Army, and I had drill sergeants. So I should have been more concerned about the drill instructor than what I was. But I had a mindset, it's just a drill sergeant in a different uniform. That's all it is. It's not. It's not the same thing. All right. I'm not saying that one is better than the other. Okay. This isn't an Army versus Marine Corps rivalry video. I'm just telling you that they're separate entities. They focus on different things. The Marine Corps drill instructor was 20 times more intense in everything they did, to the point where you were wondering if they were going to have a stroke at any second. Now, in receiving, it wasn't necessarily the case, because receiving is an administrative section that you go to. When you get to recruit training, although your recruiter and MEPS, the Military Enlisted Processing Station, had done a lot to prepare you administratively and medically for your transition through training, it wasn't completed, and there's a lot to be done. So the point of receiving it is to spend several days, if not a week, in a command, basically in very similar to what you will train in, the whole platoon bays, the squad bays as we call them, under the direction of a drill instructor, having everything, micromanaged, but the point of receiving is to get all your paperwork, all your final medical stuff, dental. I mean, there's a ton of things, your vaccinations, there's a ton of things that have to be done before you're allowed to be taken over to the training battalions and turned over to your training staff, your drill instructors that will actually take you through this journey. There's a lot to be done. So that's a little misleading too, because those drill instructors are probably, I guess you could say, more in line with the drill sergeants that I had experience with. They were tough, they were intense, but it wasn't on the same level of what I was about to experience in a few days. So when you get to receiving, it's essentially a lot of medical appointments. So they're going to herd you around everywhere you go. It's going to be real fast. You're going to get your head shaved. You're going to get your uniforms issued. You're going to stay up probably your first night all night long and through the next day, looking through mountains of paperwork and however it's done these days. Just a lot of administrative processing, and it's not a nice experience. It's not a pleasant experience. It's a horrible effing experience, okay? Because you're stressed, you're tired, you get no sleep that night. They keep you up all night, or at least they did us. And you're signing papers, and you're listening to people you don't know who they are. They're just Marines, and you don't know how you're supposed to talk to anyone. You're getting yelled at constantly up, and then you're shifting, you're moved to the next, you're marching here, you're marching there, and next thing you know, you're eating morning chow. You don't even know when you got there. Everything's, at this point, you're not used to this. Okay, and this is just a foreshadow of what's coming, but this is like you're not used to it, so you're very disorientated, and we're just talking about basically the first day. For the rest of your time in receiving, it's similar. You're going to just get, you're going to be taking places. One specific place I've mentioned a couple of times is medical. Medical was an interesting first impression for me as a young recruit, because I expected the drill instructors to be yelling at me all the time and to be like, their veins to be popping out every time I moved. But I didn't expect to be talked to by the naval medical personnel. Okay, so in the Marine Corps, there isn't a medical corps. The medical corps is the Navy. The Navy provides certain support elements that the Marine Corps doesn't have, and one of them is the medical portion. So you don't see Marine Corps doctors. You visit naval medical officers and corpsmen. All right, they take care of you. They're awesome. Okay, but at this phase in recruit training, they are no friend of yours externally. All right, they're taking care of you, but they're also being huge dicks to you, or at least they were back then. And I was surprised at that. It was kind of another culture shock to me, because I didn't expect that. I don't think I experienced that in Army basic training. I think it was drill instructors were this way, and everybody else was kind of, essentially nice to you, almost empathetic or sympathetic for you. They knew you were going through hell, and they were just trying to make your life a little easier when you were in their company. But in the Marine Corps, not the case. It's like every sailor, every support personnel, even the mafia barbers, Those who were in the Marine, went to San Diego, don't know if these guys are still around, but back in the 2000s, I know they were. You had, oh my God, I hope this doesn't sound racist. You had the Mafia barbers, and these were some Italian dudes. I swear to you, they were watching Rocky, Godfather on the TV. They were talking, they were talking in, Italian, and they were just, and they looked like they looked like they were having a mob meeting at any minute. Okay, they really did, and you just kind of was like, man, these guys, they're not Marines, but you just had a feeling like they might be there under witness protection. All right, I'm just saying what it was. That's what everyone thought. I'm saying it. Okay. But if you was there, and when they shaved your head, it wasn't like in the movies where they were like, it was a slow, in the movies, they always show this barber just kind of putting the clippers there and then slowly shaving the hair and then like rolling the recruit around and letting him experience that he no longer has hair, that shock value, that kind of a drawn out moment. Wasn't like that at all. These guys treated you like cattle. You sat down in the chair, they shaved your head as fast as they could, took hide off the top of it. I swear I left there and my brain was exposed in the back of my head. And as soon as they got done, it took like 10 seconds, a little bit exaggerated, but it was pretty fast. As soon as they got it done, they shoved your ass out of that chair. It was gone. All right, and they did that, and I don't know how much money they made. We paid them. This wasn't something that was picked up by Uncle Sam. In Marine Corps recruit training, we paid for our items, essentially. If we didn't, in some manner or another, it was taken out of our check. We used some type of system. I can't remember exactly how we did it, but we paid for it. All right, that was all taken from us. So that's kind of how you were treated by people other than the staff. No one at the depot, at least in that phase of our training, the initial phase, looked at us as anything other than cattle. All right, that's just how it was. The drill instructors actually showed us more concern than anyone else on the depot. So after receiving is completed, then you will be taken by your receiving drill instructors and taken over to the training battalion, which is, kind of, it's close, but you have to march over there, and you're introduced to your senior drill instructor. I think maybe you're the officer, maybe the lieutenant, the XO, whatever they were called, the series XO, or I'm not sure. There's an order to it. I can't remember what it is, but they, you meet your drill instructor, and he gives the famous senior drill instructor recruit speech. All right, this is essentially his pledge to train you and to not give up on you even when you've given up on yourself. I'm not going to even attempt to butcher it, but if you want to listen to something pretty inspiring, just click on. I'll try to put a link. I'll put a link maybe to another YouTube video in this description. You can watch it. It's really phenomenal, and I didn't appreciate it at the time like I did afterwards. After you've been through it and you realize that everything they said they meant. So you meet your senior drill instructor, and he is as bad as he is. He's the nicest one of the group. All right, you have the wolf pack, the rest of your drill instructors who are, they all have different roles. I will tell you that. You have a senior drill instructor, and then you have, I don't know the proper terminology. I never became a drill instructor, so the ones that did show me a little bit of mercy. But you have drill instructors who, one of them's purpose is mainly to teach you drill and ceremony, and he's got a role to do, and then you have another one who seems like his main job is just to rip you apart every chance he gets. He's the one that doesn't even seem human. So you have different personalities there, but when they get together, it's just chaos, and it's you deal with that constantly. After receiving, the first thing that you're going to do, or the first thing that I remember doing, if I'm correct, I didn't research how it is now or even look back on it, so it is what it is. I'm just telling you how I remember it. You go through a series of things. Number one is the first thing, and this starts in receiving, you have to learn how to move from one place to another, so they start teaching you, start drilling you how to do how to do march and close order drill, things like that, which are used to teach you discipline and teamwork and endurance. And this is it's essential to getting all the units. You have to understand at recruit depots you have thousands of trainees, and they have to be moved around, and there's a lot of moving parts, and everything is done with cards and on specific times, and it's a very locked down procedure. I mean, they've got this thing down to a science, and they're shifting classrooms, and you have thousands of Marines in formations that have to be here and here and here and here, and they all have, selected time slots, and everything's got to be, and this goes on like clockwork all day, every day of the year. It doesn't stop, and these drill instructors and the staff there, they have it down to a science, and this is why there's no patience, there's no time. You have to do everything immediately as you're told. You have to respond to orders immediately. And this is what close order drill does, besides the fact that it just looks fucking cool and it's sharp. All right, and it's what Marines are most really noted for outside of battle. When most people think of Marines, they either think of fighting or they think of Marines in dress blues doing close order drill, like the silent drill team. And we'll talk about that in another video too. Those guys are an elite special unit that just does that, and they're incredible. So you'll spend time doing close orders drill, and then you'll start your classes to learn the Marine Corps traditions and the cultures, and essentially build the relevance and importance of that title. So when you ascend to the Reaper, you don't just feel like, hey, great, I'm a Marine now. It's not like that. You spend a tremendous amount of time through close order drill, through marching, through running, through physical fitness, through IT sessions, or initiative training as they used to call it, physical punishment, and other events, and the Crucible. You spend all this time that builds the importance inside of you of what it means to earn that title, and that's compared to all those who have held the title of U.S. Marine in past. And we're talking about war heroes and service members, your members of your own family that you know, and people that you have never known that you will be brothers with by that title for the rest of your life. So that's the importance of it. Recruit training consists of different phases, and the first phase really is going to be the worst phase. I don't know how they're doing it now, but in my day, it was the strip down phase. You have zero privacy, no individuality at all. You never do really, but you're controlled every second, even when you're doing hygiene, when you're showering, when you're using the toilet, when you're brushing your teeth. No matter what you're doing, no matter where you are, you probably have a drill instructor staring and yelling at you and telling you how to do it and to hurry the freak up, okay? Usually with their hand in your face like this all the time. Somebody's right in your grill telling you everything. Army basic combat training didn't have that. There was a lot of it, but they weren't standing in the shower telling you freaking scrub your ear right now, hurry, and actually managing every second. They weren't telling you which side of your mouth to brush your teeth, or they weren't telling you to scrub your face on your right cheek and then scrub your face on your left cheek, and then and essentially making sure that you did everything proper, okay? That you were clean, and that you were, every moment of your life, physical fitness, how you eat, everything is controlled. It's a very shocking experience, even for someone who had been through a boot camp previously. So that is what you're looking at. Now, the entire time I was in recruit training, I kept waiting for the combat part to start, because when I went to Army basic training, it was essentially combat training. It was very basic combat training, how to march, what a rifle is, how to shoot, go into the field, how to wear a pack. It was when you left basic combat training, you should be able to march and shoot and follow orders in the field. That's about it, but you should be able to do that. They should be able to take you and put you in some type of combat unit, and you can at least follow orders, hike a ruck, and handle a weapon without killing anyone but the enemy. That's about it, but that's what you could do. The Marine Corps recruit training was much more in depth at what it did, but it really didn't get into that yet. I didn't realize that until after the Marine Corps separates its combat training from its recruit training. So every week I expected to start doing some field related stuff, and every week I was out on the grinder, marching, doing close order drill, physical fitness, Marine Corps martial arts. At that time it was called close combat. The martial arts program started while I was in, after I got to the fleet, and I'll do a video on that. I was a second degree black belt instructor trainer in the Marine Corps martial arts program, and I'll tell you my adventures with that too. That's got some funny stories. I don't ever take myself too seriously. Even my accomplishments, I try to tell you how it really happened. Not the hero version, the true version. So that's what your days consist of. A lot of history, a lot of tradition, a tremendous amount of close order drill, marching, physical fitness, running, pull-ups, push-ups, running, obstacle courses, classes. I think I said that already. And it's broken, and that's what you do initially. And then at the end of it, you'll do marksmanship training, and you'll finish with the Crucible. So after you've completed a few months, and you've made it through essentially what they call initial and final drill, which is you demonstrating to the commanding officers with a drill instructor's leadership that you are an effective, fit, disciplined unit. Then you are given the privilege, I would say, of ascending to the next phase, which is your marksmanship training and then the Crucible. San Diego Marines, the only ones I can speak for, never went to Parris Island except once to visit. San Diego Marines, we leave the recruit depot, we get on buses, and we travel up north to Camp Pendleton. There is an area of Camp Pendleton set aside for us, and when we get there, we move into barracks and get thrashed usually, just a kind of a welcome to Camp Pendleton type of deal. And then the next week we start classes, or the next day we start classes, and we begin what is known as, as a Marine Corps marksmanship training, which if I remember the boot camp version of it was 2 weeks. We started with classes. We call it Grass Week. It's going out to the ranges, and you will have a primary marksmanship instructor assisted by Marine Corps range coaches. The marksmanship instructors wear a similar head attire as the drill instructors, but they are not drill instructors. They're also kind of known for their cool looking shooting jackets. And then they'll be assisted by range coaches. And I think in boot camp they wear the same thing. I know in the fleet they wear the safari. I don't know. You can look that up. It's kind of an interesting headwear that they have. But you'll spend a week learning about the rifle and learning how to, and basically snapping into it, dry firing. You'll learn the course of fire. You'll learn marksmanship. This was much more thorough than what I experienced in initial Army combat training. They taught you how to do a 300-yard zero. You went to the range. You started shooting pop-up targets. This was there was more to it than that, but I mean, not in comparison to this. This was windage, elevation, data books, 500 yards distance. It was truly a marksmanship package, not a combat marksmanship package. But it started with the fundamentals of actual marksmanship. Your positions, your fundamentals of positions, everything. It was covered in depth. Like I said, you were even filling out data books when you fired and things. Very, very detailed training. You'll spend your first week that, and then your second week you'll start shooting, and eventually you'll do your qualification course. That's a whole other subject. I'd spend another 30 minutes talking about the marksmanship course and a qualification course. Once you've completed the marksmanship phase, I'm not sure, I don't remember exactly what week you're into up north or in this final part, but at some point after that, you reach the time to, you'll do some, I guess, some type of, I can't remember what we did, but some type of orientation toward field training and things, but you're getting ready for the Crucible. The Crucible, and I'm almost 30 minutes in this, is going to go a little over because I am going to talk about the Crucible, although I'm not going to get, day by day, because quite frankly, I'd have to research it. I don't remember it. I remember major events, but I don't remember, it's a kind of a confusing time. The Crucible starts in the middle of the night, similar to how, when you hear when you hear people talking about it, it'll sound kind of like you're talking about Hell Week and Buds, but it's not the same thing. Hell Week and Buds is longer. There's zero sleep. I mean, I think they get a couple hours in a week, and it's just a longer process. It's more to it than that. The Crucible is about half that. It's 54 hours. It's actually less, it can be, I guess it's 54 hours, so that's 24, 48, a little over 2 days, a little less than 3. So less than half of what Bud's Hell Week is. And you spend the majority of that time hiking with a pack, okay? So you have a combat loaded kit, a vest, a pack, your weapons, and then extra gear that the unit will carry. And you basically go on a 54-mile hike, which while you're hiking, in those days, there's no food. I mean, you get like an MRE and a half, and then you get a little bit of sleep, not a whole lot. And you march 54 hours, and during that mileage, you're going to encounter obstacle courses and challenges. It's a mixture of individual and teamwork exercises. They're all rigorous events. They're in the middle of the night. They involve live fire assaults, things like that. It's when I say live fire assaults, we weren't shooting live fire, but we had live fire. No, I was in Army basic training. We did, I think it may have been blanks. It may have been, I can't remember if it was whatever, but there are assault courses. Honestly, the bullets wouldn't have made a difference anyway. It was the assault course that was miserable itself. Long, treacherous, cold, wet, fire hoses in the whole place is just, each event is very challenging. And some of the events are like that, and some of the events are, team building exercises, which is where corporate America got the idea, essentially. And these are, challenges where you have to work together and solve problems and think, and that problem-solving warrior mentality to get to the next one. And then some of them are cultural and historical tradition-based, and those are called warrior stations. And they're actually, at the time, I didn't think of them as I think of them now. At the time, I was like, okay, this is a break. I didn't realize the relevance and importance of this. But this is the time that you've trained up to this point, you've trained your body, and you've trained your mind, and now this is training your spirit. This is part of that synergy that the Marine Corps bases everything on. And in the spirit, you learn about the sacrifice of Marine Corps, and in some case, Navy corpsmen, heroes from past conflicts, how they acted under fire, their esprit de corps, what they did, how they put service above self and mission above themselves, and the Marine and the sailor next to them above themselves, and they were able to accomplish the mission and ensure liberty and freedom for us all in every conflict. And I'm sure now it's from Afghanistan and Iraq all the way back to the ones that we discussed. Once you've completed this treacherous hike, very little sleep and food, you get to this, what appears at the time, an enormous mountain. When you go to infantry training battalion afterwards, you'll see it again, and it looks a lot different after you've been through some of the hikes you have. It's not as tall anymore. But at that moment in your life, it's one of the biggest things you've ever seen, because when you arrive at the base of it, that this is the Grim Reaper. The Grim Reaper is the mountain. Later Marines would call it a hill, but it's a really steep one. It is where you ascend to the top, and at the top, the command and the drill instructors are waiting to put you into formation and award you the coveted Eagle Globe and Anchor, which is the insignia of the United States Marine. But wait, there's more. The best part, after getting your Eagle Globe and Anchor, is that when you come down from it, I believe on the other side of the hill of the Reaper, there are tents set up with what they call the Warrior's Breakfast. And it is a gigantic buffet of steak and eggs and bacon and anything and as much as you could possibly want. And you're being served